and retinitis pigmentosa since around 2008. Up till about 2018, I had never heard of agribility and never heard much about vocational rehab, not let alone what it could do or not do for me. It's a very lengthy story on how I discovered agribility and how that works. So I won't go into that. I'd love to talk to anybody about it. But my mom passed away in 2018, that's right. And my dad, my dad and I, we ran our farm together. We had 100 acres, about 40 or 50 head of cattle, and he had dementia and Parkinson's. And I had always wondered, kind of in the back of my mind, with my vision disorder, it was going to gradually get worse. And they had told me that you'll go completely blind, but it could be 20 years, it could be 30 years, it could be 50, 60 years, who knows? So I was always wondering, okay, how am I going to be able to operate this farm? Because I knew my dad's health condition was getting worse and did not know how much longer he was going to be able to help me. Well, he, more or less, I was the brawn of the bunch as far as the farm, and he was my eyesight. So we made a great team working together. There again, in the back of my mind, how long was this going to continue? Never knew when his condition was going to get worse. Well, in 2018, my then sister-in-law knew the agribility rep for Tennessee, Eileen Legault, and they struck up a conversation, and she mentioned Eileen about myself and my condition. There again, never knowing anything about agribility. So fast forward about 3 or 4 months, Eileen and the local ag extension representative came down and met with me on my farm, and my dad at that time. We just kind of gave our situation and where I would like to be and to continue this farming operation. So that's when they put me in contact with VR. There again, I'd never even dreamed about vocational rehab being able to facilitate what I needed on a farm. I always kind of put vocational rehab with manufacturing and such as that, being uneducated for myself. So I went to the vocational rehab, and this is when it got really tricky. Yeah, Paul wanted me to give not all good, but I need to know the bad aspects of VR. Well, selling my situation, and I use the term selling broadly, meaning, typically, okay, you're blind or going blind and you want a farm. I just didn't register with the counselor that I was speaking with, let alone work with cattle or equipment or such as that. And I thought, well, it's a long-range plan. I don't want to wait till I get to the point that I can't do anything to do something. So it was a selling point, and I had to try to finally convince them. I said, well, okay, your dad pays you. No, my dad doesn't pay me. I help him on our farm because I know at one point this 100-acre farm is going to be mine. And I want to have everything set up and ready to go to when something does happen to him, I'll be able to continue. They said, well, how much money are you going to make? Well, it's a farming operation. If you can answer that question, we're all going to be rich. So I said, it's just going to be a trial and error and such as that. But honestly, I wasn't here for the money. Obviously, in farming, money is important, but it's not everything, meaning I'm an 8th generation farmer. Our farm has been in our family since 1866. So the heritage has been held down over the years, and I wanted to continue that as long as I could because I knew I was going to be the last of our generations to keep this going. And my grandfather, I grew up in his shadow. That's all I ever knew what to do, is operate that farm and be with him. And then when he passed, I went into helping my dad. Well, unfortunately in 2020, one of the biggest fears came true. My dad passed away. So guess what? It's just me. So with that said, I had tapped into VR, and then I got into, I'm not sure, Jennifer, what is the Star Center, what's the title? I'm trying to think. I know y'all are Assistive Technologies, but the group that was before you guys came into play.
That served Middle Tennessee?
Yeah.
It was the Tennessee Access Center.
Yeah,
Technology.
Okay. Well, the reason I say that is they got me started, and I made the connection, and I thought, okay, well, game on. You know, here I'm going to get this stuff. They got me a Zoom text program to use on my computer. Then all of a sudden, I get a phone call, and that group has went belly up, and now I'm starting back to square one. So I'm like, okay, what do I do now? So I have to go back to VR. At that time, yet another downfall to VR, counselors. Counselors. It was changing. Seemed like every few weeks or every few months, I was getting a phone call from a different counselor. The turnover was huge. I'm not one to sit here and dictate why that's the case. I'm sure it's funding and money. I'm sure they don't make that much, and they do a lot of work, but I can't, you know, as far as the solution to that. But then again, I was having to sell it again, over and over, every time a counselor would come into play. Luckily, I had some really good counselors that would say, okay, let's go with it. Let's, you know, pick up the ball and just take off where we were. Then I might have a counselor that's like, I've got to completely start this over. And I had one, in fact, and I don't talk about it bad about anybody, but the fact is fact that she was telling me, okay, well, we got to start all over. Now you got to go to your doctors. You got to get your medical records. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. And I'm like, I'm blind. It's not better. You know, if you could fix it, if I could take a pill and we could fix this, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It's not like I'm going through physical therapy to fix my eyes, you know, or anything like that. So luckily, it's not kind of what you know, it's who you know. So I was able to get in contact with the regional director of Middle Tennessee and spoke with him. Fortunately, he suffered from retinitis pigmentosa. So he could totally understand where I was coming from. We bypassed the certain steps just for the fact there was really no need to go to medical records and start all over. So with that said, after we got the other organization folded, I met up with the Star Center, which are a great bunch to work with. Brownie points here. But no, and with that said, honestly, in all seriousness, I didn't want to be, and I wasn't raised that way. First off, don't tell me I can't do something. That's my grandfather's characteristic, so I'm going to find a workaround any way possible. And, you know, don't tell me what we can't do. Let's see what we can do. And that's where I felt like I was taking this up. I didn't want to be the type of person that receives, and I don't want to use the word handout, but I will, takes advantage of the projects and the technology and the items you get and not put forth the effort to give back. That's the reason I'm here today, and I'm proud Paul asked me to be part of this and anything that I can help do. And if you've got any questions on some of the things that I do, I'll actually be presenting with the Star Center on a 240 segment to kind of give a little more in depth about my life and kind of how I use assistive technology. But to back up on vocational rehab, it's a great program. I'm sure with any other program, there's a lot of tweaks and a lot of changes that can be made. And I know there's a lot of differences in different states. And I don't know whether there is a such thing as a overall outline that would accommodate any and all states, because I know everybody differs. But I think that would be something that, you know, just an outline that everybody can kind of work off of, so you don't have that confusion. Because that one counselor that I was working with that was kind of giving me a little bit of a runaround came from Florida. And I found out right quick, Florida's way of doing things was nothing like Tennessee's. And that's why we had the problems of trying to get everything established. So, again, VR is a great program. You know, whenever you're dealing with state and federal, I'm sure there's all kinds of hiccups that's going to happen, whether it's somebody's fault or not. It's just trying to streamline the steps to get it where it's easy for the agribility, VR, your clients, and such as that. Because I'm sure that, I won't brag on myself, but I don't think many clients are probably as easy to work with and get along with as I am, because I just like trying to make things as simple as possible. So I'll kind of wrap up. Does that, any questions or Paul or anything like that?
Jason, does anybody have questions for Jason?
Wow, I did good.